Hi, this is Steve Hargadon, and welcome to the Future of Education. It's Thursday, October 13th, and our guest tonight is Gina Bianchini, formerly of Ning, and now with Mightybell. Hi, Gina.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Welcome back, and thanks for coming on.
It is my pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure for us to have you here. The Future of Education is sponsored by my Web 2.0 Labs project, web20labs.com, all about helping educators connect with each other. Do check those projects out. We're supported also by Blackboard Collaborate, that's the platform that we're using tonight. Coming up in November, 2 great free virtual conferences. You gotta come to these. November 2nd, it's actually the 2nd to the 4th. Depending on where you are in the world. But the Library 2.011 Conference, the Future of Libraries and Librarianship. My co-sponsor, co-chair is Sandy Hirsch from San Jose State University's library program. We have 161 sessions. It will be free, all live in Blackboard Collaborate, and all the sessions will be recorded. Library2011.com. Check it out. Global Education Conference, our second one, 5 days of international fun. Really, I kid you not. If you didn't attend this last year, you must attend. Last year we had over 450 sessions from 62 countries. It was a party. Again, all free and all virtual. And I've just announced the Learning 2.0 conference in January. There'll be more information about that shortly. But we're going to focus on all of the new teaching and learning topics that relate to participative media and the web. Coming up on the Future of Education tomorrow, a very special show during the day with David Lorcher on libraries and Web 2.0. Posting for that will be on my futureofereducation.com site tonight. But if you are around tomorrow, David is a fascinating guy, and he's going to be coming directly live from Washington State, where they're having a library conference. I'm postponing the show on October 18th, which is Lee Crockett on literacy is not enough, because unfortunately I'm going to be on an airplane, but we'll reschedule that. Mark Sermon, head of Mozilla Foundation, on open badges on October 20th. Mike Mariner on Road Trip Nation on the 25th. And we have our two big conferences. You can see the rest of the schedule there. David Maxfield is new to that listing, one of the authors of two really fascinating books, Influencer and Crucial Conversations. We're going to talk to him about education. If you've missed any of our shows, they are all recorded and up online. Not on this list was Tuesday night's session, which was just brilliant. Tim Wilson on his new book, Redirect. 5-star recommendation from me. Lots to talk about in education. Before that, Peter Cookson on a Children's Education Bill of Rights, then the iPod in the Classroom report, Cecilia D'Oliveira from MIT OpenCourseWare, Bob Glenner, the filmmaker. Anyway, they're all those recordings are up at futureofereducation.com, both in full Blackboard Collaborate versions and in MP3 format. Okay, so this is where you get to tell us where you're listening from. Gina will be impressed. To the left of the whiteboard, you'll see some icons, and you're looking for the star. And you want to click on that. Sometimes it takes a double click, and then click on the map to let us know where you're listening from. Also, feel free to put a shout out in the chat. New Zealand, Australia, somewhere in the British Isles, lots of North America, China. Oh, don't you love it? I mean, this technology is amazing. And many of us are enjoying very nice weather. If you're not, we sympathize. Wherever you're listening from, or if you're listening to the recording, thanks so much for taking the time. Most appreciated. So Gina, this is really fun for me to have you back on the show. A lot of water under the bridge since then.
Yeah. Or as I like to say, life being lived.
Yes, life being lived, which that's kind of a good segue into Mightybell. But before we get there, I had a talk with some folks from Ning yesterday. They're doing some kind of new push on promotion. and they told me that education is the largest category of Ning networks at Ning. Were you aware of that?
I left in March of 2010. It does not surprise me at all. I think that one of the areas that we saw almost immediately after we launched Ning Networks was a real sort of passion amongst teachers in terms of using Ning in the classroom and to organize other teachers, which, as the daughter of a history teacher, just really made me incredibly happy and proud.
That was a fun period of time. There were changes at Ning, and obviously you left. I don't know to what degree you want to talk about that story, but I feel like I ought to give you the chance to kind of be a little bit proud of what you did there, because I feel like it was kind of monumental. As you look back on your time at Ning, do you feel that sense of accomplishment?
Absolutely. And anytime you create something that people take and use in ways that you couldn't have possibly imagined, that is truly the pinnacle of being an entrepreneur and being somebody who is passionate about product and product design. And so not only am I proud of it, I celebrate it, I am incredibly honored by it, and it is in part the thing that gives me the inspiration and ambition to continue to push the envelope on social software products that connect people around their interests, their passions, their goals, the things that make them interesting and unique and curious as people. And so that's really how I approach the areas of social software that I'm kind of the most passionate about.
So I don't know that I'm going to completely put into words what I'm thinking here, but I'm going to try. So the Social Network, the movie, kind of portrays someone who is not that social himself, creating an extremely social product. When I look at my own participation in social media, I'm intrigued at the degree to which I tend to be a relatively private person, but there are pieces of the social that I feel like I do really well. And I felt like you were kind of the glue for everything at Ning. You were always around and in different networks. Is your personal life as socially active as your public persona has been?
That's a really interesting question. I would say that I really love people. I love the things that make them unique. I love the things that make each of us kind of, our own unique fingerprint on the world. And so, in my life, I think I would say, I certainly love interacting with amazing people and have the ability and opportunity to do that regularly. I have to say, though, that I am probably the happiest when I'm interacting with new people that I'm just meeting that sort of share my same, openness to meeting new and interesting people in a online social software context. And where I have the most passion is in thinking about or trying to help people achieve their goals through social software anywhere in the world. I love the map, and it's certainly something we brought into Mightybell. When you just think about the opportunity to meet people and to help across time zones and borders because of what we're interacting with every day in terms of the internet. I just think that there's something that makes me intrinsically happy to meet new people and interact with them, and it's the difference between just a phenomenal day for me and not being and feeling like I'm living my life to the fullest. So I love the online piece, I think, because you just get to meet a more interesting volume of people doing interesting things.
So I'm going to want to think about this a lot later, and I know it will be something I'll spend some time on, but I don't end up sharing a lot of my personal life, although I really like creating places for people to share. Are you a sharer? Do you share a lot of your personal life online?
No, I don't think I do. I think that I don't necessarily know that I'm opposed to it, but I just don't necessarily find it that interesting.
I'm gonna leave that there for now. But I have this kind of theory that's brewing that that there may be a certain kind of personality type that does really well with social software. And in presentations I do, I always show a picture of Julie from the Love Boat. And that there's a person who kind of likes facilitating, but it's not necessarily the same person who's sort of constantly sharing about themselves.
Right. The way I sort of think about it, and I think that, this is kind of like an early thought that is just starting to brew and form for me, is that when I think about, what is it that, I spend my time doing and my team spends our time doing, it's building social software. And what is social software but organizational design? And organizational design meant to motivate certain behavior that people have, and facilitating certain ways for people to interact with each other. And I think that there's sort of two models evolving within sort of social software design. And I think sometimes at these periods of inflection, it's not totally obvious sort of which direction it's going to go. But I do think it's really interesting how, when you look at sort of the dominant social software platforms today, there is this sort of increasing and accelerating sense of sharing, that really what it turns into is sitting back and watching in sort of smaller and smaller increments of time what people are actually doing. And I think that is actually producing that sense of watching the world go by, or watching like that sort of fear of missing out that I think Katerina Fake has written so eloquently about. And I think that there is something interesting there that has value, but I also think that there's a piece to it that makes people feel sort of a little empty, or sort of like high fructose corn syrup relative to eating some just regular God-made sugar. But there is this sort of emerging social software dynamic, and it's certainly something that I see not only in Mightybell, but in sort of a host of small and rapidly growing social platforms and social applications, that is really around motivating and pulling people along with them towards action, towards learning, towards teaching, towards doing. And I think that, as you're talking about the Julie, the Julie persona, or the Julie kind of personality type, and the people that are sort of more comfortable sharing every single thing that they're doing, I'm really struck by what I think is happening at sort of a more macro level, where you see social software products becoming more about this sort of intensive, seamless sharing, which produces people sort of sitting back and watching the world go by around them. And this new model of how does social software help people become more active and engaged and interesting and curious and passionate and interesting. And I'm really excited about the host of companies that are, and host of products that are really sort of facilitating how do you take people from sort of passively watching what other people are doing and actually creating organized action and learning and education. And I have to say, it's the thing that I'm most excited about, and it's the thing that gets me up every single morning, just excited to build, excited to meet people, and excited to see where all of this is going to go from here.
So I don't know that you and I have ever talked about this, but for me, Ning really represented several transformations at one point in time. One of which was sort of shifting the dialogue from the blogosphere, which tended to be caustic and argumentative, to a much gentler, more thoughtful conversation between people. And it feels to me as though Ning, in many ways, kind of precipitated a culture of collaboration. Do you see a connection between the kind of these tools of the web and an increasingly collaborative work style?
You know, you and I have not talked about that. I had never sort of heard that said about Ning Networks, but wow, what an amazing compliment. If we had, you know, any role whatsoever in terms of you know, facilitating on any level a culture of collaboration, because that certainly is something that, man, I'd be honored to be a part of. So that's just such a kind and wonderful thing to say. I actually, it's funny to me that you also say that, in the sense that, you know, what Mightybell, which is what I'm working on now, and we launched a mere 4 weeks ago, the culture of collaboration is something that we really think is at the heart of where we're going, and what we believe is the future of how people learn, how they're motivated to do things, and how they have and can use social reinforcement and social proof for living better, more interesting lives. And I think that the idea of a kinder, gentler, more thoughtful conversation, I've never sort of thought about it in that way, but, you know, even our messaging system on Mightybell is really meant to support people, to thank them, to welcome them, to congratulate them, to cheer them. And, you know, if the ways that we plan on growing that out from here are sort of deeper and richer in that sense of, you know, how do we bring people along together to accomplish more than, you know, any individual can accomplish on their own. And so, you know, I would say that this is an area that I perhaps just, you know, think is obvious and is something that, you know, must exist in the world, and work very hard every day to make it a reality.
So I don't want you to worry. We're going to do a full tour of Mightybell, so you're
going
to have a chance to talk about it.
And I hope this is sort of, I think about it more as a, you know, hopefully a far-reaching and far-ranging conversation. But it's just so interesting, because I've literally been spending the day thinking about co-creation and collaboration and you know, co-conspirators in creating things that are much bigger than ourselves. And so it's more recognizing the serendipity of you must have been, you know, your ears must have been burning about some of the things we've been talking about and thinking about.
Well, for me, the forum discussion piece of Ning was really brilliant. And I tell this story a lot, but, you know, you allowed for people's pictures to go everywhere. There was a way to be involved in the conversation where you only had to write a sentence and you could actually be part of it and get feedback. An individual in the network could create a group. It was this recognition of the value of the individual, which felt to me like it was really significant and important. I also felt like Ning, and you in particular, very much understood what it was like to be a beginner. And I get that same sense with Mightybell. Is that part of who you are, is that you care about that beginner?
Yeah, I think that, you know, both for very practical reasons, and for, you know, probably, you know, passion reasons as well, you have to invite beginners in. But, you know, if you've ever hosted a party, it's you have to welcome people in at the beginning and give them small things that they can do so that they feel comfortable and they feel like they're a part of it. And I think that's how, you know, I certainly approach building social software, is to think about it as, you know, basically putting on the best party you absolutely could put on as a great host.
Well, my final sort of comment about Ning, and I appreciate your letting me spend some time on Ning here, because I think it sets the stage, both in terms of Mightybell, but also in terms of who you are, is that for me, what Ning did also so brilliantly was it really facilitated the long tail. And again, you and I have never sort of spoken directly about this, but I have a skin condition called vitiligo. It's the Michael Jackson skin disorder. And I started a Ning network for people with vitiligo. I didn't have to have a mailing list. I didn't have to have foundation money, but it's probably the largest gathering place for people with what's considered a very debilitating skin disorder if you're dark skinned. And I'll get an email a week from someone who'll say, I was so depressed until I found the network. And I'm sure that there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of other Ning networks that fulfill comparable kind of purposes that could never have been started. And so for me, part of what Ning did was it really helped to reshape this world of building from the bottom up, that projects could get started by somebody who just had a desire and an interest in doing so.
Yeah, and that was absolutely a goal, a passion on my part, and it's something that is just so innate to the things that I believe make us special and unique and interesting as people, and also just make it, I sort of think about it as a little hit of awesome in your day, and you get that because you can connect to people that you can build strong relationships around because of your shared interests, because of your passions, because of your unique outlooks on the world, or the different things that are important to you and that you're working through. And so what I'm so excited about is the fact that all of the things that you're sharing, which I really appreciate, and again, I'm incredibly proud of the team that we put together at Ning and the products, certainly on my watch and under my leadership that we built. And where we're going from here are all of the things that, in terms of thinking about how we take everything you just mentioned and bring it into 2011, 2012, and beyond. And I think that's absolutely the thing that I wake up every morning just thrilled to push and thrilled to challenge myself and our team here to identify more opportunities to pull people together around their interests, their passions, the things that they care about. And I think with Mightybell, even more, the things that they want to accomplish or to master, whether that's around a topic, whether that's about learning Russian history, or in terms of becoming the absolute best version of yourself, whatever that means to you, and finding like-minded people who share the same goals, who share the same desire to master a topic, and finding them and really building strong relationships with new people around the things that you care about the most.
So Gina, I've pulled up the Mightybell screen. I'm thinking, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you want me to log out so people can see the first screen, or does that matter? Would that be
No,
helpful?
I don't think it does, especially because I will set the stage for where we're at right now and give you guys a sneak peek as to sort of where we're going. So what you're looking at right now is the dashboard, so what somebody would see for themselves on Mightybell. So the fundamental idea behind Mightybell, and we are a whopping 4 weeks into a limited beta focused on really creators, leaders, educators, creating what we call experiences. And an experience is simply a series of actions or steps or modules or units or lessons towards a goal or around a topic. And so you name your experience, and basically you lay out a series of steps or a series of actions or objects, and then basically can launch it, invite people in, and then they can go through those steps, those actions, those objects, those modules. And that is kind of Mightybell in a nutshell. So as Steve is clicking here, this is basically, oh, my screen just disappeared. A moment. would be my aggressive screensaver.
It can take a second to refresh.
Yeah, no, I'm back in. So what you're looking at here is all the steps or all the actions in one place for Teacher 2.0. And then it basically allows you to dive into and progress through a series of actions or a series of lessons, a series of units. You can actually call steps on Mightybell anything that you want. And then it is a great way to sort of focus in on, what is that next step as I progress through, this particular experience of Teacher 2.0. And that is Mightybell in a nutshell. And then what we have is the ability to see, fellow travelers or fellow participants to be able to, if you go to the Today tab, you can see, what an action looks like. So it has sort of the title of the action. It has a photo or a video. It has the information about it. You can also add quick tips, as well as the conversation and advice area that is just specific to this particular action. And then you can go ahead and you can complete the step. You can ask for help. You can add a private note that only you see. And you just go through step by step, action by action, this experience. With the fellow travelers, in this case, 1,000 people who are doing this or have done this together. And then we basically show metrics, not only about sort of where people are in the world in this experience, but then also, who's sort of the most active users. What Steve's showing is sort of the creator or the leader view, where you can see where people are coming from. So in this case, Steve is generating people from a lot of other sources. You can then also invite people in. You can see basically if you continue to go down the completion rate per action. You can see what people think about it. So as people complete the different steps, they're then actually saying, hey, what do you think about it? We prompt people, what do you think about it? So, and you see here, a lot of people are happy with Steve's Teacher 2.0 experience. And then you can see where in the world are all of the fellow travelers, who are they by sort of a demographic lens. So this will be interesting. So for the most part, you can see everybody's all over the world. And if you go down a little bit further, and 60% females, 40% men, typically it looks like ages between 40 and 49. And then you can see here who the fellow travelers are, when they joined, what they're doing. And then over on the right-hand side is ways to prompt people to congratulate, support, welcome them in. If you click on join, for example, you can see who just joined when. So actually, Steve, if you click on join, this is my favorite feature, and it's sort of hidden right now.
So tell me where to click, because I'm not seeing it.
If you click on joined, right next to location in this leaderboard, oh yeah, just click on that. Then you can see the fact that Sharon just joined 3 minutes ago, James joined 25 minutes ago, and you can actually go through here on the right-hand side and support them, welcome them, cheer them in a way that's actually really hard to do if you're just in a discussion forum, for example. Exactly. I have so much fun doing that.
That's the first time I've ever done that.
I know, it's totally fun. It's totally fun. So this is actually the kinds of things that I just spend a lot of my day doing, because it's just one of my favorite things.
Okay, so tell us how you came up with the idea for Mightybell.
A lot of it came from seeing how people were using Ning, and where I thought we should be pushing the social software market, really around how could we create the best platform in the world to motivate people to act and to learn and to teach and to engage with each other to become better and better and better, no matter how you define what better means. And that, to me, was kind of the impetus and the mission, and remains the mission of Mightybell, which is how do we create an environment where everyone is teaching, everyone is learning, everyone is motivating each other to think big. So that's sort of the idea of like being a part of this larger experience, but then to be able to break things down into very doable pieces so that you can actually say, wait a second, like I actually can complete or master Russian literature, or I can absolutely make changes to my own life because of the clear path as well as the social support for reading a book a weekend, or whatever it might be. One of the wonderful things that someone in the chat room just said that I thought was really cool is really looking and thinking about how to sort of make this more focused on education. And I think that that's actually one of the fascinating things with social software is so much of what, if we're doing our job right as social software builders, they are flexible enough that passionate people can take and use them for their own purposes and really turn it into what they want it to be. That I think is super cool. And so that's really, both the overall vision for Mightybell, but also kind of how we approach it and what we're really passionate about from here.
Sounds like you have some visitors.
I do. I had a friend just show up. Here, I'm going to go on mute for a second.
Gina, let me know when I can ask you the next question.
Hi, I'm back.
Okay.
I sort of feel like my mom used to, when we were growing up, we all, like when somebody would come in and she would be like, I am on the phone. I just had to do that.
Did you make that little motion? A little quiet motion?
Exactly.
Hey, so Peter Slutsky had called me and said that this was getting started and wondered if I would create one for education. And I had just, I'd sort of procrastinated and wasn't really sure what I was going to do, but I liked the idea of the platform, and I gave an all-day workshop on Teacher 2.0 in Australia, and then had kind of a jet-lag night where I knew I wasn't going to sleep. And I took that all-day workshop and I just plugged it all into Mightybell. And it worked really well for me. I mean, it was a very kind of natural process. What are other ways in which people are kind of thinking about how you create a Mightybell? Are there sort of tips or tricks you're giving people to help them kind of get started with thinking about how you would populate the actions?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And in fact, actually, from our perspective, one of the really amazing opportunities that we have from here, and one of the things that we've heard, just is like a really, really great idea, which is, to actually break up the creation of a Mightybell experience from this sort of sense that I think the Create page has today, where it's like you do have to sort of sit down and like put it all out at one time and then launch it as a very sort of linear one-time, one-shot kind of thing. And in reality, actually, what we're going to be making more obvious from here is, one, the fact that it just takes, all you have to do is really sort of set it up, invite people in, and then start adding things to it. So that it maintains that sort of linear sense, or even being able to go through something not in a non-linear way, but that it doesn't actually require somebody to sit down in one fell swoop and create an entire experience or an entire class or an entire course or an entire series. So that sort of sense that you just, part of it is sort of starting and sort of seeing what people want it to become. And then you can always go back after the fact and edit steps or edit actions, add new actions, and everyone will be able to be a part of those. So that sort of fluidness is something that we're really encouraging of. The other thing is that we just added the ability to pull in YouTube videos. So you could imagine we use the example of creating a bartending school, which is simply a series of YouTube videos that exist already, which are, like how to make a classic martini or how to make the perfect old-fashioned. And one of the things we just see as a really just nice, simple way of creating experiences is really as more of a remixing or reassembling of information that already exists online and pulling it into something that feels like it is a cohesive class or a cohesive series towards a goal or around a topic. And those things are working really, really well.
So that we're getting some questions in the chat,
yeah.
and I just want to assure people that I'm capturing them and I'll bring them up. I want to get through a couple of other things first, but then we'll definitely shift to that. I thought Peter told me there was a story about you sitting on the living room floor cutting up magazines or something that was a part of the creation process of Mightybell. Am I remembering correctly?
You are. I mean, I think I am not alone in the fact that I love going through magazines and cutting out, ripping out the pictures or articles that I want to do. And I think that that's certainly something that, has been an inspiration to us at Mightybell in terms of thinking about, there's all of this amazing inspiration that exists in the world. And when I think about inspiration, it's not in the courage posters that you put on the wall in your office that you buy from the Sky Mall on a United flight. But really it's about, how can I look at something that is much bigger than myself or something I don't believe that I can do. And when it's broken down into a series of small steps or a series of suggestions in an article, whether that's a travel guide or whether that is a 10 fall essentials, being able to sort of lay those out so that you can think big and dream big, but then break things down into a series of doable actions or steps or units or modules. It is how we live in the offline world, and bringing more of that, into the tunnel of social software. We just think it's something really, really powerful and really, really amazing.
So I didn't mean to skip over the YouTube so quickly. I'll give you the feedback that I watched that video of adding YouTube videos, and my first thought was not bringing in other videos, but I was delighted to realize that I could actually record my own videos for each step. That was a huge plus for me.
Cool.
Okay, so we're going to keep moving here because we're about to go to Q&A, and there's stuff I want to talk about first before we get there. Ning wasn't built as an educational program, but clearly it tapped into something sort of deeply resonant with people about social learning, and especially for teachers to learn with each other. Mightybell does the same kind of thing. It creates a social environment for learning. For me, it was very clear, that at each step I could allow people to talk to each other about what they were learning. Is there a kind of a bigger picture here related to the creation of educational software where it's not necessarily geared towards education, but it ends up being really valuable? How does this tie together?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question. I generally speaking believe in building social software that has a sort of core fundamental human element to it, a human motivation. And that to me is actually the most powerful aspect of what we are building and doing today. And so, what I love about, certainly the things I've built in the past, but even as we're sort of working with Mightybell, if you are a teacher, you see the power and potential to teach. If you are an activist and a leader, you come to Mightybell and you see the power and potential to organize people towards a goal or around a topic. If you are an entertainer, you see ways of engaging people in new and interesting ways. The list sort of goes on and on and on, and that to me is, if you are a traveler or someone who writes and is passionate about traveling, you see this as an amazing travel guide and the potential for creating rich, immersive social experiences around travel or adventure. And so that, to me, is how, as a social software designer, I approach the world, and I approach kind of what we build. And I feel like the power, if we're not constantly learning and we're not constantly, I don't think education should have to be in a box that is a formal accredited process. And so the fact that that we can take and tap into social learning through the power of connecting people in new and interesting ways, I look at that as the goal.
So I think that was actually the answer I was looking for, even if I did a poor job of phrasing the question. Okay, so we're going to move sort of into Q&A, and sometimes people are shy about asking questions, and other times they're not. I've collected 3 questions so far. If anybody would like to take the microphone to ask a question, you can do so by raising your hand. So look in the participants area, and you'll see a hand icon. If you hover over it, it says raise hand, and you can raise your hand, and I'll give you the mic. It does help to do the audio setup in advance, but if you haven't done that, we'll go ahead and give it a shot, and if we can't hear you, we'll have you do that. So Gina, the first question that I pulled out was, this is from Jim, how could you see this expanding something such as Khan Academy, which has online lessons but no extensions to reach the unique needs and thoughts of the learner?
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody was over the other day in our office and basically said, wow, this could be Khan Academy for everything else. And I thought that was such a huge compliment. And yet I actually think, again, given my background, having sort of conceptualized Ning and watching how people used it, I think the power is in exactly as as Jim said, is in not only creating a space around a goal or for a topic and mastery of that topic or progress towards that goal, but it's then pulling in other people where everybody teaches and everyone learns. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this. It was shared with me by somebody who I have a lot of respect for. But as you think about education, sort of moving from this sort of idea of like the sage on the stage to a guide at your side, and I think that is really the power of what's possible today. And as you think about the uses of that, the possibilities start to get incredibly exciting.
So I'm going to agree completely. I like Khan Academy in the sense that it's scaling through technology. It's scaling existing methods for teaching, but it's not really 2.0. In the same way that MIT OpenCourseWare is scaling the availability of really high-quality courseware, but there's something about the act of creation which is integral to our sense of teaching and learning. And what participative technologies do and what Mightybell does is it allows people to become creators. And I think that's a really big part of what makes education so special. So Jim had a follow-up. He says, does Mightybell have bandwidth to support a local school district to enroll teachers and parents in its evolution? So I'm not quite sure what Jim means there, but I'll riff on that a little, let Jim kind of clarify if he needs to. Part of what I would really love to see in Mightybell, and Peter gets plenty of emails from me on these kinds of ideas, is a way for a group to go through an experience together as a group. Not necessarily as part of 1,000 people, but as maybe part of 20 people. Is that on your roadmap?
Yes, absolutely. And I would take it one step further, which is not only going through an experience as a group, but creating an experience as a group.
Okay, I love that. So one of the questions that's going to come up, and I know it's tender, but when Ning went from free to paid, there was an awful lot of pain in the educational world. have you thought through, if this product really does develop an educational audience, how you would manage the transition from a free service to one that has some revenue component?
Absolutely. So I am a huge believer that when you set expectations for what is free and what is paid in a product, you keep them. And so the goal is to absolutely avoid all of those kinds of business model transitions, if at all possible. So that transition happened after my time, and so I certainly won't comment on that. But I certainly believe, as it relates to Mightybell, that there's a very viable business model when you put in place day one the ability to choose as a creator to charge for an experience or a premium experience, or to make it free. And we believe very strongly that there are opportunities for really a very healthy business model where we are enabling creators to extract their own monetization models for experiences. So, if you think about what somebody's paying today, in an after-school program that might be, an art class, or my aunt is a piano teacher, people are paying for informal, specialized mastery of a topic, or when you just look at the market for home cooking recipes, diet, exercise, health kinds of books that people are paying for, parenting guides, all of that stuff, we believe should be rich, immersive social experiences, and some will be paid, and some will be free, and some will be sponsored. But Mightybell has been built from the ground up to ensure that those kinds of difficult transitions will be avoided.
I think that's a really good answer. And I've introduced you before virtually to Adam Fry at Wikispaces. But Wikispaces ends up for me being a really good model of working with education, because they have this sort of core free piece, and then they have an institutional buy piece, where an institution can buy the functionality that's available for free, but then they actually can have some control over it. It'll be fun to watch what you do there. I'm having kind of a light bulb go off, and I'm thinking about all of these reality competition shows on TV, like Cupcake Wars and Chopping Block and singing and dancing. There's got to be some kind of cool thing you could do with sort of contest creation, right? Yep. Where people will go through together. Well, I won't jump the gun there. Hey, so Pradeep wants to know, how do you maintain motivation within an online group over time?
Yes. This is actually one of the reasons why we built Mightybell, is because one of the things that I certainly saw was that it was sort of hard to know what was going on, and how and where and who your highest value, most active users were on a Ning network, for example. And that one of the things that we could do with Mightybell is make it a lot more obvious who are new, who's there, how can we get people back, how can we engage them through sort of a progression through an experience, mastery towards a topic, achieving a goal. And so instead of actually having it being like one long ongoing conversation, instead actually create the inflection points for people to be able to continually re-engage. So, we definitely have a lot more we have planned there, but, it's certainly a lot easier to see how to and where to engage people when you know sort of who they are, what they're doing, and where kind of at a more macro level things are working, things aren't working, and where they can go from there.
I'm just putting some links in the chat. People were asking how to get to Mightybell.
Yeah,
Gina,
so
the name...
Mightybell. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
When you go to Mightybell.com, right now it's set up for our limited beta so that you pay $1 to become a creator. We will, evolve that over time. But you can all join Steve's experience, Teacher 2.0, for free. Again, any experience, it's up to the creator to decide whether it's paid or free. But most of the experiences on Mightybell today are free.
So if you want to become a creator, it's $1. But to join Teacher 2.0, for instance, or any of the other experiences, there's no charge. Okay, where does the name Mightybell come from?
I'm so glad you guys. I saw that in the chat, and I was really happy that you guys asked that question. If you think about it, a bell is the ultimate social icon. It's been used for thousands of years to pull people together, to ask for help, to organize people, and probably most importantly, celebrate small successes or larger successes. And when you take and you apply that, the power of social software to that, fundamental human organizing principle and the symbol that's been used for thousands of years to enable that, that's a pretty mighty bell. And that's why we call the company Mightybell.
So that certainly is a better story than Ning. I never really knew if I got the full story on Ning. Was there a better story for Ning that I'm remembering?
It means peace in Chinese, and we wanted a very short and sweet, URL, and that's how we chose Ning. Certainly, as we have been building Mightybell, we wanted a name that every day we came in inspired us to work harder, build more, and to really, just build the product that represents our vision of becoming the best platform in the world to motivate people to learn and to act.
When Peter told me about it and told me the name, my first response was school bell. So someday you're gonna do a nice little twist on Mightybell that involves school bell.
Absolutely. Well, and why does the school bell exist? It's for those same, iconic reasons. To pull people together, to organize people, to show progression through a school day. And that, from our perspective, just lends itself so nicely to where we want to go.
I want to make sure I didn't miss any questions. I don't think anybody raised their hand, but you're certainly welcome. We probably have time for one final question if you'd like to raise your hand and take the microphone, or you can put another question in the chat. If I did miss a question, I apologize, but please feel free to repeat it there. Gina, where are you going from here? What are sort of the big picture goals for the next month, say, for Mightybell?
So in the next month, in the next few weeks, we'll have a really nice way to discover new experiences, and that's really exciting to us. The other thing, and I would say the thing we're sort of the most excited about, is evolving the creation of experiences to include and incorporate and more contributors, more co-creators, more collaborators. And we think that that's going to just be something that produces new experiences that are just really exciting to us. So I couldn't be more thrilled with, even just some of the conversation we've had over the last hour in terms of being consistent with the direction that we're the most excited about for Mightybell from here. And really, thinking about how can we provide more ways of inspiring people. It's like, how would you make a table of contents inspiring? How could you make a syllabus for a class something that feels like the most beautifully designed product in the world? Those are the kinds of things that we're really looking forward to doing with Mightybell from here.
Gina, it's really delightful to have you on the show again. I appreciate your taking the time to do so. As a courtesy, we do finish on time, so I'm clapping for you here, and I'm going to the smiley face in the participant window, and then I click on the applause button. It's too many clicks for me, and I'm sorry about that, but you're getting applause from others and smiley faces.
Oh, thank you guys so much. I really
well
appreciate it.
deserved. We're giving you the kind of feedback that you love to give others. We're saying hooray.
Thank
Anyway,
you so much.
You deserve it, both for Ning and for Mightybell, and it's really fun to have you back on. Tomorrow, David Lorcher on Libraries and Web 2.0, and then next week, Mark Sermon from Mozilla on Open Badges. Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight. Thanks again to Gina. Terrific to spend time with you, and we'll go ahead and close. Good night. Take care, everybody.